Today's Stripe Show podcast is brought to you by About Golf Simulators.
And we're back, Stripe Show podcast on a Tuesday. No tournament this week. Give Keith Stewart the day off. We'll be back next week. We've got the Ryder Cup. Got some good stuff lined up for you on that, where we're leaning, some of the teams that, or pairings, I should say, that we think we'll be seeing on both sides. We'll break that down next week. So we've got a special one for you here today. On a Tuesday, we've bumped it up. It's necessary because I've got one of the top short game coaches in the game today, joining me from Arizona. It's his day off, but he's not traveling with one of his multiple players. So he's kind enough to take some time for us. Join us here on the podcast. Gabriel Hjertstedt, how you doing?
Doing great. Good morning.
Hey, I appreciate the time. I've followed your stuff. First off, I want to tell my audience that you are a terrific player. I mean, you won twice on the PGA Tour. So let's just go ahead and get that out there now and start there. You played the European Tour. You're from Sweden, right? Originally, but you spent much of your childhood in Australia. Is that right?
Yeah, so my parents emigrated. I grew up playing golf in Australia, which I think was pretty amazing, really. And I think I grew up on some crappy conditions. So that's how you do short game, I think.
Now, crappy as in like no grass and like hard pan mud. What is it?
I remember my first golf course that I was at had no bunkers.
Okay.
And no irrigation. So that was a little bit dicey, but
yeah,
I think that teaches you them.
It does. It's funny you say that because I grew up in northern Idaho in an area called the Silver Valley. And when I was young, it was one of the biggest areas for silver. And so we had these mines, and this black slag, I think is what they call it, comes out of these mines. That was our bunkers.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. I mean, you're hitting out of this black slag that would actually get on your skin. I mean, I look back at that. I'm like, wow, was that even safe? Anyway, yeah, I know a thing or two about conditions like that. But you're right. I mean, you've got to learn how to hit off of different scenarios, right? Different lies, tight, ball sitting down, flyer lie, whatever the case may be. And so we could probably talk for a full day on all of that. But really, I think today, where I want to pick your brain is on a technique that we've been seeing, I think really become a little bit more highlighted. I've sort of been part of that. I've kind of thrown it out there in the development of Viktor Hovland. He's kind of brought it front and center, a guy that struggled with a short game, kind of bounced around a little bit, eventually settled in with Joe Mayo. And this technique that I think Joe showed him has really helped him. Yeah. And it's really helped him control the bottom. It's helped him control launch. It's helped him control spin. The light went on, and Viktor Hovland, I think, no longer his short game is an issue. Now, this technique that we're going to get into, I know you know Joe Mayo as well, and you've been teaching this technique for many, many years. This is not new stuff. This is a technique that has been around a while. So let's get into this technique. I'm going to play a video, Gabriel, first, a video that you sent me, and it's a video of you using your shadow. We're going to kind of phase out and let this video run for 25 seconds. And I want, for those watching on YouTube, you're going to see Gabriel talking about this head movement and how the head's going to move a little forward. It's very clever here in the way that he uses the sun and the shadow. So let's listen and watch this first.
Forwards, okay? And again, so we want the body to start shifting forwards and staying on the front of the tippy toes as we do this. So this is a good exercise, again, if you don't want to use it.
Okay, so there's two things that I'm going to tee you up on. One is what the head is doing there. And the second thing, did you say tippy toes?
Yeah. So
take us in.
I'm a firm believer that when you're chipping, you're on the front of your feet, never on your heels, because to move forward, if you get into your heels, you'll actually start going backwards. So if you're on the tippy toes, you can pretty much just take your heels off the ground. Both heels off the ground.
Heels off the ground, okay?
Yeah. And now as you take your backswing, you start shifting your head forward, because the death move in chipping is, that's it right there. Now you just stay there. So if you keep your weight on the front of your tippy toes as you start your downswing and start through the swing, keep going. Now you stay forward because you're on your tippy toes. So if you went back on your heels right there, your body would start spinning backwards. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the death move in chipping is moving backward.
It's interesting. Now, the head movement, let's talk about that, because we saw the head or the shadow covering up the ball.
Yeah.
And then when you took it back, your head went forward and the ball came into sunlight. So if my head goes forward, everything's going forward, right?
Correct. So, and it's a little bit of so what's happening here, and this is where, this technique has been around for 100 years, but now it's explained and starting to understand it. But the two ways to chip, obviously we can keep our head totally still, or we can move forward. But the key is here is like, if by moving it forward, we increase the attack angle. And also we make sure that the bottom of the arc is always in front of the golf ball, which is, if you want to be a great chipper, that's what you need to do. So I think it's more athletic weighted chip. So if you get up here and you just start your backswing, your head starts moving forward at the same time and stays there. So, it's really athletic like when you get up here, it's like, think about it, if you had to throw a ball, you're not going to you move towards a target. Okay? And we're working at such speeds here that we need the bottom of the arc forward. In a full swing, we're always driving everything to the left. But because we're shifting and working at low speed, we need the head to move forward to set the bottom of the arc in front of the ball.
Talk to me about shaft lean with that. Let's just say this is a stock 20-yard shot. I just hit that shot. It carried 17 yards.
Yeah.
The launch was under that sub 30 kind of launch that we see on tour. I think it was around 28, 29. It was just under 6,000 spin.
Yeah.
So that was, and I clipped that pretty good. Now, let's talk about shaft lean.
Yeah.
Do you like on a stock shot to see that butt of the club pointing to the left hip? And what do you like to see as far as the club face? I know it varies on shot to shot, but just if you were to encourage my audience on a stock shot, what would you say on the face and the shaft?
Okay, so let's put it this way. Every single shot that you hit, the hands are leading. Okay?
Yeah.
And whether it's, if you have it back in your stance and you're moving forward, the shaft lean is going to be a little bit more.
Yeah.
So if you got it forward in your stance, moving forward, the shaft lean will be a little bit less. So if you just for the audience sake, so for your players out there, it's like, if you lead with your hands every single time, you'll be okay. And that degree varies. And this is one of the things too, when people say you have to use the bounce, right? You've heard a lot of people hit it with the bounce, hit it with the bounce. Now, this is the biggest crap I've ever heard. I'm going to say it straight up, because for me to use bounce, I'm using the same swing as you just did there. Open up the loft, right? But if you open up the loft right now, you've added bounce. Okay, so now open it up. You've just added bounce. Now you're just still going to hit the same shot where you move forward and lean with the shaft. Okay?
Yeah. So let me back up for a second. When you open the face, you expose bounce.
Yes.
You can also expose bounce, obviously, through shaft lean.
Yes.
But what you're kind of saying here on this stock is go ahead and lean the shaft forward. Go ahead and put the ball maybe stock middle, maybe slightly back. Open the face a little.
Yeah.
Okay. And then from there, I'm
still lean with the forward. Lead with the hands. Yeah.
And then as I return, the hands there's going to be a little shaft lean there. But now from here, as I turn through, it's not like, let's go back to Victor for a minute. What you would see in a full swing from Victor here is you would see him really sustain something like that.
Yeah.
But then in the short game, okay, yes, the shaft's forward, but now that left wrist is going to go into extension a little sooner.
It can. So, I mean, obviously when you have more loft, that's the instinct to do that, right? So, but if I sort of say, like, as you come through the hitting area, where it's, a foot before the ball and a foot after the ball, the wrists do very little. Okay. And you'll see maybe on certain lies, you'll see the guys maybe release their left hand and release the hand angle just a little bit more. But that's depends on the lie. If it's really fluffy sitting up, you'll see them do it. If it's very tight, they won't do it. They'll hold that for longer. But that's just a natural way for them to hit it.
Now, I'm going to bring in one of your students here, okay? This is Justin Suck, who I love. And when I'm going to play this a few times.
Yeah.
And a lot of my audience is listening right now. So you do a beautiful job articulating what it is that we're seeing, which is awesome. That's why you're probably a great teacher. That's one of the great, the great characteristics of that. But I want everybody to listen to this sound. I mean, it's just, just clipped. The other thing is, okay, we've got Shaftwing.
Yeah.
He's not taking a divot, though. He's not taking a divot.
Yeah.
So how does that happen? Explain that to my audience. That, okay, I'm going forward, and the club's falling with an attack angle, and I've got the shaft forward, but he turns through and just clips it. No divot.
So if you look at if you're hitting that spank dot Jacksonville, Florida, into the grain, there'd be a massive dip. Okay, so a lot of it has to do with the grass. Like right there is on some grass, maybe it's even down grain, I'm not sure, but the grass is flat enough. So if you think about, like, if you're on a mat hitting a golf ball, there's obviously no divot. If it's firm grass, you gotta take a small divot with a 7-iron. If it's just raining, you gotta take a massive divot. So the technique doesn't change, the conditions change. That's why there's So if we were down in Jacksonville, Florida, right, and he hits that shot, it'd be a divot.
Okay. Would it be a leading edge, or would it be more of a kind of a brush, a kind of a bruise?
It would be a leading edge divot.
It would.
Yeah. So it's like a little bit miscued there, because what happens is the grass changes. Like, I'll hit that same shot, no divot, and I'll go down to Bermuda, and we might even have to go to 6 degrees because otherwise it's too diggy. But what you got to realize, these tour players, they don't care about if they take a big divot. All they care about is their whole foot. So this is where the
golfers
comes in and really works great.
Today's Stripe Show podcast is brought to you by Hack Motion.
So it's interesting when I look at that right there.
Yeah.
With Justin post-impact. I mean, that left wrist, and I know it's a particular type of shot, and they'll vary that left wrist.
Yeah.
But that left wrist, I mean, it's not exactly, just flying into extension. I mean, it's not, he's kind of turning through. The right wrist looks bent to me.
Yeah.
And he
really hasn't changed it much. Yeah, he really hasn't changed it much as of impact. It's more the turn of the body that's making it look like that. So I don't know if you can stop at the impact there. And and you'll see his hand at leading. Yeah. And that angle right there that he's got won't change until maybe a foot after impact.
Okay. So his feeling, and I know feels change, but would you say his feeling is his wrists are passive and he's turning his chest?
Yeah, because he has a lot of body to out there. That would be like his sort of sensation.
Yeah.
It'd vary from player to player, but for him, you'll watch his golf swing. The hard part I had with Justin, because he's very body orientated. Yeah, there you go. I mean, that's the classic handle there where I see Victor Hovland. You see all the great players are in that spot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also see the weight is very forward on the feet.
Yeah. Yep.
And you know, he hasn't backed out. So.
How much wrist hinge do you want? Is that something because that's a question we get a lot, and I look at this here.
Yeah.
You know, are we trying to, you know, really put that left wrist cock in there, or are we just trying to get the club head, say, just a little above the wrist?
Yeah. So if you look at it like, if you understand like the wrist, think of it as leverage. Right? So the wrists are like leverage. Now, I like to use my right hand. You use the left hand. You can use both hands. But the wrists are there to get leverage. So what's leverage? It's speed. So you're gathering speed with your hand from the backswing, so you can sort of flow it on the downswing. So if it's a short shot and going across the grain, it will obviously be a faster hand action and a little bit more aggressive hand action. And if you're adding a little bit of loft on it, you'll end up using slightly longer swing. Therefore, the leverage, you don't need as much wrist to go back. Well, it will vary, but if you're a golfer out there sort of looking at this today, think about the wrist leverage. Okay, it's not wrist set, it's gathering speed. So if you understand that you gather speed with your hand from the back swing, then it starts making sense.
Okay, so let's go ahead.
Yeah, if you stand up there and hit a couple of shots, and so say you're going to hit a low shot, right? So a low shot is an aggressive swing. So it's like a 1-2, 1-2 on the action. So 1-2, even quicker. But you can go like even quicker on that backswing there and drive it forward. So give me like a 12-yard shot. 1-2, 1-2, 1-2. Hey, there you go. Good.
Yeah.
So, now, if you open it up, I would do a little bit of loft, add a little bit of loft on here.
Okay.
I'll end up going to a 1-2 pace, 1-2 pace, 1-2, 1-2, like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now you sort of look at that, you say, okay, well, the leverage of the hand changed dramatically on the
Yeah.
And this is where we come in where, because we're really trying to get the smash factor low at impact, right? But to get a smash factor low at impact, we need to have a lot of acceleration and speed in the club if we come into the golf ball. So we can actually let it go. Come in.
It's interesting you say that because it almost feels like what I'm loading in going back is what it's going to be coming through.
Exactly. And that's why it's athletic chipping this way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you have to carry enough speed. It's like a putting stroke. If you've got enough speed on the backswing, you don't have to hit it. So this is really what we're trying to match up.
I think that's a really, really good point. In especially on the low one when we're trying to get that launch down. Yeah. There is a bit more brisk. It's a bit more brisk, isn't it? Boom, boom.
Yeah, exactly. Very much so.
And then you think about the other extreme in the lob. It's, you know, it's just la, 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 la. Yeah.
And this is where, like, so once we understand that the tempos change so much, then the leverage of the hand start making sense, because then there's no, like, there's the instinct in the hand to gather speed or go slow. So,
yeah. Now, let's go back to the stock for a minute. One of the things that I know that you talk to Joe a lot, and one of the kind of the main principles here that you see with elite short game players is that sub 30 kind of launch, right? They're trying to keep that launch in that window, which I think is a bit lower, that window, than what I think the amateur eye would think,
exactly.
Right? Around the green. And so a lot of this, or all of this really, that we're discussing is to kind of meet that need, right, of that lower launch. And then from there, that lower launch, it's like, I like the analogy of, of the dart, right? And it gets them control and it gives them spin and it's just kind of the best of both worlds. So you look at the amateur player, let's say a 15 handicap, a 10 handicap. Is this something that they could watch this and really just say, hey, look, here in Florida, and go out there and start doing this? And it's like, yeah, there's the bottom. I'm turning. I'm capable of launching it right away. Sub 30, gaining spin, which that ball, when it does, it, the friction is such that you can start, really spinning it too. Exactly. And that low 1 hopper, 2 hopper with spin starts to become a reality. So is this something you've had experience? 15 handicap, no problem.
100%. So, and one of the things is that, like, understanding. So if you sort of look at it like ping pong, for example, if you open the face and you hit a little forward slide for the ping pong ball, comes out low and spinning. So that's the analogy that I like to use. Most people play ping pong or tennis where they fly a tennis ball and then all of a sudden it comes out super low. So that's the sort of feel that we're going for. So also understanding that you need a good wedge. You need a fresh wedge with grooves, because the more friction you have off the face, obviously the shot is going to be easier. You need a premium golf ball. You haven't got a premium golf ball, it's not going to happen. So the analogy of a flight tennis ball flies out lower, or a flight ping pong ball that flies out lower, that starts making people's minds. And then it's about carrying, not hitting through the shot like we talked about. We get our feet on the backswing. We almost feel like we're decreasing speed right away.
Yeah.
That's very important.
It's funny. The same conversation is had in putting oftentimes.
Yes.
When the idea is that, okay, I'm going to take it back shorter than I bring it through because I'm accelerating.
Yeah.
The reality is most of the best putters actually take it further back with more pace and finish shorter.
Yeah.
And so on the surface, you would think, well, he's decelerating. And it's like, well, no. Well, maybe a little, but it's kind of more cruise control. He's loading the pace in. And what you're telling me, he's loading the pace in the backswing and putting. And what you're telling me here, it's the same darn thing around the green.
Exactly, because we're working with constant speeds, like full swing is a smash. We're working with constant speed, low speeds here, so it applies the same thing as you do with putting. You bring enough speed where you don't have to hit it.
And how good of a putter?
What's that?
I was gonna say, how good of a putter is Justin Suh? Off topic here. I mean, that dude is so good with the putter.
Yeah, he's great. He's a great ball striker. He's getting his short game going. So I think, you look at, like, that's a classic example. So when I started working with him, he was accelerating through impact on his chip. So now he's got understanding. But one of the things, we have to change his grip, right? So let's talk about the grip part of it. Because all you people out there that interlock, you're better off upping your chip. Because it's a lot easier to let go of the right hand would separate your hand chipping. So
interesting.
Justice was an interlock player. He chips overlap. Bo Hostler was interlock with chipping overlap and pitching overlap because it gets the smash. So
interesting.
The grip
is
an aspect of it as well. So, and that's why you had Ogner would use, 4 or 5 different grips chipping. Like, for example, like 10-finger grip, it's spin off. Overlap like a putter grip on a small chip when you're choking down and you have the tongue down there to avoid the grain, and target to overlap.
So let's back up to Suh for a minute. You're telling me when I'm watching here in this technique that the pace in which he's taking it back and through is matching, which is now consistent with what he was doing with his putter.
Yeah. So watch this again, and it's like, so you see, it's the same. So
it is. It almost, you can see that, like, right at the end, it does maybe look like just a small, like, real, just, it's falling, and then it kind of just gathers itself at the end. It's not accelerating.
No, so that smash factor is way down. The smash factor there is probably like 0.74, 0.72. So the great chippers, when we hit these shots, we can get it all the way down to, I'm saying, 0.58,
Wow.
0.60, and the spin goes up dramatically at that point too.
Talk to me, last thing on this technique. Talk to me about center of mass falling on the downswing. Is that something you talk about where when I'm looking at Justin, he obviously takes it back and he's going left.
Yeah.
Okay, now the club is going to fall. We know that. But is there a sense of the body kind of falling with it, and obviously it's turning with it?
Yeah, not on the chip shots. I like to try to avoid that.
Okay.
So I feel like it's more a forward and up move. So if I'm moving forwards, I'll do this right. Forwards, and then I go up and I come into impact. So, because you want to avoid the legs leading, right? So this is the arms are leading the way. So yeah, the head goes.
So I'm forward, and then I'm up.
Exactly.
Yep.
So you avoid, because if your legs, if you're dropping your center of mass like you would in a full swing, then you're changing the bottom of the arc. It's easy to hit it chunky. So
yeah,
you go forward.
Yeah. And I think like that rotation and up is something that obviously as you work on this, you get comfortable on kind of when that happens, right? Like, when do I start maybe kind of working
and it's
back
really,
up, because you're not staying down. You're not staying down. That's something we got to get across.
Yeah. And because people want to create a little bit of space. That's the way to create space for you.
Yeah.
You come in here.
Well, and that up, correct me if I'm wrong, Gabriel, that up is going to get the club head out of the ground too. So
exactly. And and it's all about like creating forwards. Like, so the forward movement of the head and the speed of the arms, you're creating all these forces, and they're coming up with the body where you can relax your hands and relax the club into the ball, So that's really what's happening. Like, you're making all these movements to really optimize no hit at impact.
So 23 yards carry, 29 launch, 5,600 spin.
Yeah, it's great. Now, if you had a wedge,
I'm ready.
Wedge, you would add 2,000.
Talk to me about your wedge.
So, with a couple of years ago, probably 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, I was so frustrated about getting the right equipment wedge-wise. So finally I said, you know what, I'm just going to build my own wedge. So I came up with a good, and it was a 61 degree, 9 degrees of fully forged, fully milled. I've got mini grooves on there. This is a real weapon. But now I know that I'm going to the wedge that I'm pulling out every time, whether I grab one every 2, 3, 4 weeks, but they're always coming out the same way, same spin, same feel. So if you guys are real wedge connoisseurs, this is the ones to use right now.
All right. I love it. I love it. Let's talk about one more shot here.
Yeah.
Because I want to bring in another one of your students, and this guy is Bo Hostas. And this is this is a different shot here. This is now a little bump and run for those listening. He's just off the green and carrying it, maybe 6, 7 paces, and then it's running out, and he hits like 3 or 4 and makes every single one of them. That's amazing. I mean, it really just.
Yes.
So talk to me about this shot.
Yeah. So this is one of the things I like to put these players in positions where I'm forcing them to make at least 2 in a row. And Bo's technique is a little different. So he struggles a little bit with what I do. So we work around. He's got a little different. Different swings. He had an issue opening the club plate. You know, it's only in the last 4 months he's been able to open the club face in the golf shop around the green. Because as he was coming in, his club face fly open. Okay.
Yeah.
When he hits an open chip shot, he needs to feel like he closes the toe, like really releases the toe.
Yeah, it's interesting. Everybody's kind of got their own little thing, and as a coach, you got to be flexible, I'm sure, because as I've said many times, the player will push back on certain things, and so then you start to accommodate on, all right, well, let me kind of go a different direction on what would work for Bo. Maybe that's a little different conversation that would work for Justin. You know, it's just, it's really good stuff. There's so many great little nuggets in here. And, you know, I knew this technique this is something that, you know, I've taught a little bit over the years as well to help control low point and help control that lower launch and get that more, you know, optimal launch angle and spin and those kinds of things. And it's cool to see it kind of share more light. I know this is something that you've been doing for many, many years, but
I got a lot of pushback too. I got a lot of pushback on it too. You know, 10 years ago when I was doing this, getting people to move forward and stuff, I'd have people saying this is stupid. Yeah. But I'm excited that I've been consistent on teaching the same stuff. You know, and now watching victories.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a great job. You know, if all your stuff, you need to go let people know how to find your stuff on social media. And I also know you got a website.
No. So Instagram is Gabe Golf, and my website is gabegolf.com. So check it out.
All right. Well, next time you're in Ponte Vedra, Jacksonville area, I think we need to do an event where I'll sell it out with people here, and we'll have you put on a short game clinic where maybe we do a little bit indoors and we do some outdoors, but I guarantee you we could get a nice group of people and make it worth your time. So we'll talk about that in the future.
Fantastic. Sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Gabriel Hjertstedt, thank you for joining the podcast. All the best.